Hello and a hearty welcome to New England Authors, where we explore the amazingly rich talents and stories of our region. We produce here in Cambridge and broadcast in stations across New England, and we're very fortunate to have a Connecticut writer with us today, Shari Randall. Welcome, Shari. Really good to have you.
Thank you so much.
And you write about one of the most beautiful places in the country, Mystic Bay, one of the most tourist-visited places, isn't it?
It is.
Mystic Bay. Can you, before we get into your writing, can you just give us a little history of the area?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Mystic Bay in my book is a very thinly disguised version of Mystic, Connecticut. And
yes.
as you said, it is a big tourist draw.
Yeah.
It's rich in history, natural beauty. The history is pretty much like most New England towns of its era. A lot of history having to do with whaling especially.
And, yes. And
yeah, and it's just, and fishing and lobstering, as we see in the book.
We're going to talk about lobstering, but there's the old Mystic Seaport there that draws so many people, and if you haven't visited it, really, it's really worth a visit. Now, you write about it. You don't really write too much about the tourist aspect of it, do you? Or
just in terms of tourists visiting restaurants. Because my story is set in a Lobster Shack.
Yes.
So that was a little bit more of my focus. As the series goes on, I will be able to focus more on the different parts of the tourist experience in Mystic. That Mystic Bay, I should say.
Yes,
I don't want to get sued. Mystic Bay, Connecticut.
Oh, now your whole life has been books, isn't it? You're a librarian, right?
Yeah.
Bless your heart,
funny.
you're blind brains. I could ask you anything you and isn't it true that librarians can't say no? We'll find out.
It's so true. You are not allowed to say no. We can't help you with that. You always, and there's no such thing as a stupid question either. You always answer the question.
Oh, well, that's really good to know because I've got lots of stupid questions. And where did your writing life begin?
I think it's so funny because when you first asked me that question, I did have to stop and think a little bit about that because I've never really thought about myself as a writer until maybe the last few years. And that's funny because when I was in school, I had poems published in My Weekly Reader. I don't know if you remember that.
My Weekly Reader.
It was a little newspaper that would come out for elementary school students.
No, I don't remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then moving into high school, I won some writing awards. In college, professors told me I was a good writer. But then my first job out of school was at my hometown newspaper, the Meriden Record Journal in Connecticut. And I remember one day especially, it was back in the day when there were, it was very much a stereotypical news, newspaper of its time.
Yes.
I was one of two women in the newsroom, and they had me write features, and more, I did more and more features for them. And there was one day I remember in particular when I came into work and I saw all these hard-bitten reporters in the corner, the kind of guys who smoked constantly and had a bottle of booze in their drawer.
Smoked in their desk, right?
At their desk, exactly.
Cigars at their desk,
and they kind of looked at me, and I looked at my boss, and I said, what are they doing? And one of them came over to me and shook my hand and said, your article is the best thing that's been in this paper ever. And I was blown away, and I started to think, maybe I can do this. So moving forward, I worked in publishing, and then we moved a lot because my husband was in the Coast Guard. So I decided to stay home with my kids when they were younger, and that's when I really started to write for myself. I did more fiction writing, and I think those years were when I really learned how to write.
Yes.
And really put in the practice of writing short stories, especially for myself.
Oh, I see. So you felt like you wanted to say something. And writing is a process of examination, isn't it? You really, when you're writing, you find out about yourself or your ideas. Yeah, isn't
absolutely.
it? Yeah, I find that to be the case.
It's thinking on paper.
Now, you're such a nice person. You seem like a nice person, I think. We don't know
Thank
each other
you,
that
Kameel.
well, but you. What makes you start thinking about murder? You don't look like a person who would think about murder.
Yeah. Why does it appeal to me so much? I think I've always liked those authors from what they call the golden age of mystery.
The Agatha Christie's.
Agatha Christie, my idol.
Yes. In one of your books, you even pay homage to Jessica Fletcher, right? You say something about, I forgot what it was, right?
I think I forgot too, yeah. No. I did mention her, and I love, I'm also a big TV person, and I love that show, Murder, She Wrote.
Oh, yes.
And I think it's that puzzle aspect that I find so appealing.
Yes.
And also, I think, you know, in a bigger picture way, we all like to have justice restored to good people, especially.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what mystery does. In the real world, justice is the bad guy wins.
No, exactly.
In our world, yeah. Now, you write a genre here. We're going to get to the books in a minute. You write a genre called cozy mystery. Is that right?
Yeah, cozy.
Can you define that? Tell us what it is. What's a cozy?
It's funny, with cozies, sometimes I think they're defined by what they are not. So people will say a cozy has no gratuitous violence, sex off the page, but you can have as many murders as you want, of course.
Yes. But no blood.
Nah, they don't like the gore.
Yeah.
So, but of course, all the cozies are on a continuum. So, of course, some will be a little bit more, a little more action, a little more thrillerish than the other ones. But cozies definitely tend to take place in a charming town. Sometimes they have, for some of them especially, the hook is very important. Something they are, let's think, there are cozies that talk about bakeries, or they're set in a theater or something like that.
Cats.
Lots of cats.
Lots of cats.
And I have to tell you, I got a review that was hysterical because the woman loved the book, but she told me she couldn't give me 5 stars because I did not have a cat.
In the book,
yes. So she docked me a star. Yeah, cats are important.
So you've got a couple of books, and they both. And I love the titles, "Curses Boiled Again," which I loved. It's a delightful book, and the one that's just coming out now, "Against the Claw." Yes, very cute. Did you come up with the title, or the publisher?
I wish I could take credit. There is a genius at St. Martin's, and their whole job is to come up, I think, with the titles.
Yeah, and so the Curses Boiled Again, it starts off with a seafood contest, right? And there's 4 judges. Is there 4 judges? And they each take a bite of the first contestant, a lobster roll.
Lobster rolls, yeah.
And one of them, an actress, a movie star of theater and so on, drops over and dies.
Very dramatic, yeah.
Now, I read a lot of mysteries, but I think anybody would know immediately that there was poison involved, right?
Yes. And poison is a very cozy murder method also.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so for my first book, I wanted to go a little traditional. So, yeah, we're not giving away too much because the murder does happen pretty soon in the book.
Yes, I'm not giving away too much, but I'm a nice person too, actually.
Yeah.
I've never killed anybody or even, I don't think I've brought harm to anybody, but I like the idea of having poison in my garden. I had a plant that was, it was ricin, the castor oil.
Oh, you're kidding.
It's very poisonous. A child can eat, I don't have it anymore, but a child can, they look like pinto beans. A child could eat one and die. Human eat about 5 of them and die. And there's a lot of other things. I think the stuff that we use in Christmas, like mistletoe and holly, that's all poisonous as well. Anyway, yeah, poison's definitely something for cozy mysteries.
Yeah, some flowers, some of the prettiest ones are poisonous.
So
actually.
you have the narrator. You is this in first person too? Is
they are.
You write in first person. So is that a little difficult because the narrator has to be in every scene, right?
It is. It's a challenge. Actually, my publisher wanted first person, and I was okay with that because I've done both. You know. For me, I love the challenge also.
Yes.
And I liked being a young dancer. That was fun. But
yes.
You're right. It is a challenge. You can only tell things if they're there, and it was a challenge. How do you get your character into these places? And so it was a fun challenge, though. I enjoyed writing this character, and from that perspective.
And the main character, though, is a person called Aunt Gully. Very,
Gully. That's so funny you say that. The main character is Allegra Larkin, a dancer, but Aunt Gully
is this
that's right. Big-hearted character.
Yes.
She's the kind of person who just is the heart and soul of her community.
Yes.
And people love her. They do. I'm cool with that because I love her too.
But she becomes a suspect.
She sure does.
Yeah.
And that's why.
How come?
Well, she is, her lobster roll was right there on the scene when the poisonings happened. So she does fall under suspicion. And of course, her niece, Allie Larkin, is not standing for that. She can't believe that anybody would think Aunt Gully would have anything to do with a murder, of course.
Yes.
Because she knows her so well.
Okay. This is New England Authors with Kameel Nasr. We're speaking with Shari Randall. And so also there are a lot of other people who become suspects. Aunt Gully's business is booming, right? She runs one of these seafood shops that you see up and down the coast of New England. Yeah,
she owns the Lazy Mermaid Lobster Shack. And yeah, as soon as I started the series, my husband and I did a Lobster Shack tour. We got in our car, we drove up Route 1 from Connecticut into Rhode Island and the Cape, and we just stopped at different shacks. And it was great. We ate and ate and ate.
I see. Yeah.
We ate a little, maybe too much.
Yeah.
I've discovered I might be a little bit allergic to lobster.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, crustaceans?
Yeah. But so he's just my designated eater. My husband does that.
All right. So tell us a little about your narrator. She becomes a suspect a little bit too,
my main character is Allegra Larkin. She's a dancer who I was really cruel to. I had her fall down some stairs and break her ankle. So she goes home to help her aunt with this booming lobster shack called the Lazy Mermaid. Actually, the shack is named after this character. That was a nickname for her when she was a little girl. So Allie is, she's struggling a little bit. When I did my research for this story, I visited the Boston Ballet. And they let me interview a dancer who had a similar injury.
Wow.
Oh, it was a dream day. They showed me everything. I got to watch a company class. I love research. So Allie, something this dancer told me was really, I think, helped inform my character emotionally, because she said, if you're a dancer, you train your whole life to do this one thing, and then suddenly you can't dance again. So who are you?
Yeah.
And so there's this point where, she's really in this situation where she's trying to figure out how she fits in again, and will she get better? So when this chance comes up to do a little soothing too, I think she finds it very interesting.
Yes.
And I also wanted a character who could do her own stunts believably.
Oh,
so
okay, yes.
that was important.
Yeah. So the police are naturally called in, and but really the sleuth is not the police. It's the narrator herself, Allie herself.
Yes, the amateur sleuth.
Yes.
Yeah. And she uses, her Aunt Gully is very important because this book is also about those long buried secrets that we find so often in New England towns. So Aunt Gully knows a lot about people going way back, and that does help crack the case.
And how do they do that? Let's not give away the story, but
but those long buried secrets that some people would rather stay buried. It's good to have characters who know not just what's going on, but what went on years before.
Okay, now tell us about this this person who died. And
yes, Contessa Wells. Contessa Wells might be like those characters that you would have seen on Murder, She Wrote. She was a movie star and then a Broadway star, and she's appearing in Broadway by the Bay, which is a theater in Mystic Bay. And she lives in this grand old mansion. Her family was from Mystic Bay. And this house has been empty for a long time while Contessa went to Hollywood. And actually, the kids in Mystic Bay think it's haunted. So Allie is absolutely dying to get behind the door and visit Contessa's home.
Yes.
Contessa has a sister named Juliet who still lives in the home. And she does play an important role in the story also.
Yes, yeah, we're not going to give it away, but she's a little bit crazy or something, yes, or something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Interesting, she's interesting.
Interesting person, okay. Well, there's something else that I found in here. There's lobster liberation people. Is this a real thing? Are there lobster liberation people?
You know, actually, there are a few websites, but they're not very active. Yeah. So I think, you know, I think it's kind of neat that people feel very passionate about their lobsters. But right now, I don't think there are any people trying to save the lobsters. I don't know.
I don't know what it is. It sounds really nice, but I've never heard of such a thing before. But there seemed to be people who put posters around to save the lobster, right?
Yeah.
And when we go into the story a little bit more, things are a little bit different than what they seem to be. You know, lobstering, I think, is one of the most dangerous occupations. Do you know much about it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because I knew that my nephew was a fisherman. He'd done lobstering, so I was able to ask him questions. And the town of Mystic is right next to a cute little village, which I hate to mention because it's so wonderful. I don't want to give it away too much, but it is called Noank, and it is home to 2 of the best lobster shacks in the country.
Oh, well, you know,
some of my favorites.
Our viewers should know this.
They should. Okay, it's called Noank. And Noank is kind of the land that time forgot a little bit. Yeah. You can walk through there and just believe that you were back in the 1840s, 1850s. It's so
going
charming.
Out to a whaling ship or something, you know.
Lobstering. Noank was the center of lobstering in the U.S. for years. Yeah. Until the hurricane of '38 kind of came in.
Oh, that was a huge hurricane.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you ever want to get your blood pressure up, you can see pictures of the hurricane of '38 and of '54.
Oh,
if you want to raise your fear factor, there was a lot of it. So what's the fishing business like today and the lobstering business like today?
Well, 100 years ago, this was the center of lobstering, and before that, colonial times, lobster was so plentiful you could basically walk down and pick a lobster up off of the beach. Yeah. It was funny. I learned that during that time, they actually passed a law that prisoners could not be fed lobster more than 2 times a week because it was considered cruel and unusual.
Really?
To make them eat that much lobster. Lobster was considered a pest. I mean, now it's a luxury food.
Yes.
Isn't that funny how that's changed?
Yeah.
But yeah, so as water temperatures have risen, the lobsters are going north. They like it dark and they like it cold. Yeah. So there isn't as much lobstering in Connecticut as there was. But now, mainly, you know, the lobsters are from Maine and even up into Canada. And it's become a big luxury food in Asia. So a lot of the lobster that's caught there is sent to Asia.
I see. So what's the fishermen doing now in Connecticut? They're moving
of other
north,
fish. Yeah, there's still lots of other fish, but lobstering isn't quite as big as it used to be. It used to be a huge industry there.
But you still have all the lobster shacks going.
Absolutely.
You know, all over the place. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's a delightful thing to do. People keep asking me why I don't have a recipe in the first book, and I think it's just because the most pleasant thing in the world to do is go to a lobster shack and have one there. I think you eat your lobster roll and you sit by the water and you enjoy the air and the sun. And it's a great thing to do in the summer.
All right, so now let's talk about now Against the Claw. You came out with a sequel. It's just coming out now.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about it. Is it feature the same person, protagonist, narrator? Yeah.
It's the same people. We're still at the Lobster Shack. However, Aunt Gully has branched out into catering.
Oh.
And so she's catering a huge party at one of the seaside mansions.
And let me guess. Somebody dies.
And the murder ensues. Actually, before that even, Allie is helping a lobster woman named Bertha Betancourt on her boat, and they managed to haul up a body on one of the lobster traps. It's a young woman, and one of the things about the relationship between Allie and Aunt Gully, it's very strong.
Yes.
And so when the police have no idea who this young woman is and nobody seems to be looking for her, that's when Allie and Aunt Gully really start to get involved. They can't believe that nobody's looking for this person. And so Allie starts to look around.
So and then what happens? Allie tries to becomes the sleuth again, and
she certainly does. Yeah.
And
has to cater. And has to help Aunt Gully cater this party for the one percenters at this mansion.
I see.
In Mystic Bay.
And do we have the same police people again?
Yeah. We do, but you know the police. Sometimes in cozies and other mysteries, I think sometimes the writers make it seem like the police are not doing their jobs very well.
Yes.
I don't do that in Mystic Bay. I feel like it is a fun mystery, but I want to make it kind of realistic. I think the police are doing their job, and my sleuth, Allie, is doing what she does. And she has a friend who is an intern at the police department, so that's how she does find some things out. But as the story progressed, I realized that that's actually becoming a little difficult because her friend is trying to be a good police officer. And so she doesn't give away things. And Allie discovered she doesn't really want to ask her friend to do that either.
Oh, I see.
She doesn't want to put her in that situation.
Yes,
so that, as a writer, that was interesting to discover that about their relationship.
Yes. This is New England Authors with Kameel Nasr. We're talking with Shari Randall, and we're talking about cozy mysteries that she's written and other works. What's next? Are you working on a trilogy? Is this?
I am actually. Book 3 is coming out in March 2019. It's called Drawn and Buttered.
Drawn and Buttered. Yes.
Yeah, they came up with another title, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, so I'm working on that, and also another series, which I can't talk too much about. It's just in development.
Oh, really? You're going to do a whole nother series? Okay. Oh, that's good. Are you sticking with the fiction genre, or are you going to go back to like newspaper?
Oh, no, I love fiction.
Yeah?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. If I went back to anything, it'd be back to library work. I love being a librarian. Second best job in the world.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Are you in a public library or in a...
I did. I worked in children's services in a public library for years. I worked in Virginia,
oh, yes, you were in Virginia. You were traveling around. So how long have you been in the New England area there?
Well, it's just interesting. One of those crazy things that happened. We moved back here a couple of years ago. And when I got my contract for this book, we were actually renting a house right on the water, overlooking this little town of Noank. So I feel like somehow the universe kind of came together in a really cool way. You know, this story just fit in right into the life that I was living. I mean, I can walk down the street to our beach with a lighthouse and just kind of soak up that New England atmosphere. So when I get stuck, I just go take a walk and kind of get myself into the, you know, the setting really deeply. Yeah.
When you write, do you like write every day or so? Or?
I try.
Yeah.
I'm a very distractible person. It's terrible. I just look out my window and go, oh, I'd rather take a walk today. I try to.
Yeah, you talked earlier about writing as a process of discovery, which I agree. Yeah. What did you discover about yourself when you were writing Curses Boiled Again? What did you discover besides that you're just a distracted little person?
I know. Yeah, I did write really well when I'm in a library looking at a cinder block wall. It's the best thing. I think one thing I discovered that was really great was that sometimes the characters tell you what to do and you have to just trust the process. As I was writing this, I didn't realize that I had this theme of sisters. I had two sets of sisters.
Yes, yes. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, as we mentioned, Contessa has a sister, Juliet, and my main character, Allie, has a sister named Laurel. Her real name is Lorelei.
Yeah.
But she prefers Laurel. She's very buttoned down. She's buttoned down and businesslike. It's kind of this opposite of Allie, who's a dancer and artistic and intuitive. And so their relationship can be a little contentious, like any sisters, especially since they both want to help their aunt with her lobster shack, but they generally never agree on how exactly to do that. And that's really great fodder for a writer, too, because there's always conflict.
Yes.
And conflict makes a good story.
And so this sister relationship brought something out in your personal relationship, or what?
Oh, well, I have sisters, too.
Yeah.
So, of course, that's always, you're always bringing those little parts of your own character, I think, into the story.
Yes.
I'm a middle sister, so I think that they always say that makes a difference where your birth order is. But with these two, I don't know where you fall in your family.
Yeah, I have one brother.
Just one,
that's it.
Are you a couple of years apart?
Yes, about 3 years apart, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Allie and her sister are the same distance, and when that happens, they say that you have two only children. And that makes for two very strong personalities who butt heads.
Yeah, but they work together.
But they do, because I think they basically both really love their aunt and they want her to succeed. Also, that there was this theme, it's great when your book goes out into the world and your readers tell you things.
Oh, it's a wonderful feeling, yes.
Yeah, that you didn't even know was in there. Like one woman wrote to me and she said, it's a story of resilience, and because Aunt Gully had lost her husband and she comes back and throws herself into running this lobster shack.
Right, right.
So it's how people reinvent themselves a little too. Plus a mystery, best part.
Yes, and as you said, justice is restored. That's really important that the right thing happens at the end.
Absolutely.
Is there any other themes that run into your book that you want to convey to your reader, like philosophical themes or spiritual themes?
Honestly,
you
when I was
confess to me, nobody else is listening.
Okay, that really maybe not too deeply philosophical. I think when I was writing this, I just thought of it as a recipe. I thought, what do I like in a mystery? I love the puzzle. It's that golden age.
Yes.
For me, it's the plot. It's so much fun to put together. You really want your reader to have those red herrings, and that, I love that feeling when the author fools me.
Yeah.
So that's so much fun to do. And plus, I wanted this book to feel like taking a New England vacation.
Yeah.
I thought, that's how I like to read. I like to escape for a little while. So, I think you can escape from your life, escape to a really beautiful place. So that's what I was aiming for with this book.
Oh, I think you succeeded. Well,
thanks.
Thank you so much. Shari Randall has been our guest here. This is New England Authors. We record here in Cambridge. We broadcast on stations across New England. And remember, watch locally. Bye.